Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it here with us on NACTV. I'm Eoin Devereux with the Banner Press, welcoming you to the August 1st edition of the program. I was just saying there, gosh, the year seems to be flying right by. But it's easy to see things fly right by when you got so much to talk about, and that's what we've got in this week's edition of the newspaper. But before we get into it, I just want to introduce the owner, operator of the Banner Press, Ken Waddell. He's been able to take a little bit of time for us this week. Thanks for coming in, Ken.
No problem. It's always a pleasure, Eoin.
And you most definitely have a lot to talk about this week, and it's probably going to be a big portion of this week's edition of the program. But before we get into that, let's get into, as always, the front page. This week we were able to get out to McCreary and cover the annual rodeo. It is such a huge event for the community. Last year I was able to get out there myself, and I was just completely and utterly enthralled by all the action, the intensity, and the drama that the rodeo was able to convey. For a little bit of someone who's not used to that sort of portion of our communities, and it was really a fun experience for the very first time. Another individual, it was this year it was Josh Jackson, who was able to experience it himself for the very first time, and he got some really nice, very good pictures that we were able to share on the front page of the edition. Now always remember, you can find a copy of the Neepawa Banner Press in 30 different communities throughout Western Manitoba. Hopefully you'll be able to pick up a physical copy somewhere abouts, but if you're not able to, always remember you can find it online at neepawabanner.com. Now, Josh, again, was able to get out there for the very first time, and I don't mind you saying this, although if you tell this to him, I will deny it. I swear I'll deny it. He is a very good shooter when it comes to photography. He's got a very good eye for it already. Even though he's still relatively new, transitioning over into print media, he's got a sharp eye for getting those interesting angles and those interesting perspectives. And he was able to do that very well with something so interesting as the rodeo. At least I thought so, Ken.
Well, I was impressed. Josh came to me last week and said, "Oh, I want to go to McCreary, and I want to go to Plumas, and I want to go to Austin Reunion." And I said, "Well, all in one day? Yeah, okay." And so away he went. And it was so hot, and he's relatively new to he's not new to the area because he was raised here, but so partway through the afternoon I phoned him up and, "How are you doing, Josh?" "I'm good. I'm just going to McCreary now." It was late in the day. So he was fine. He appreciated the call from the old man, but I was ready to go and rescue him if he it was pretty darn hot. But anyway, he had fun, and yeah, he did a lot of extra work this week in the office here and even in the distribution room. So
yeah,
he's got a day off today. So
oh yeah, every once in a while we decide not to sort of drive our employees into the ground. Well, our employees, like I'm cutting any checks.
Well, you help direct, you steer the ship there, and I appreciate it.
And I haven't steered it into a tree just yet.
No.
But there's still time. There's still plenty of time left in the year to do that. But let's move on then. If you want to find out some more information on McCreary, obviously you can check it out in the paper. This is something, Ken, you've been putting a lot of work into, and I'm very intrigued to be able to share this with our loyal sort of viewers here on the Story Behind the Story. You did an in-depth feature in regard to recreation and the future of recreation in Neepawa.
Well, I hope it is. That certainly was the intention. We've got a problem here in Neepawa. That is, we've got a very good recreation facility, but parts of it are 80 years old almost, and parts of it are 55 years old. So it's getting a little long in the tooth for some of the functions that's required of it, namely a skating rink, hockey rink. So we took some, John Luigi Pito is a great guy to have on our side here. He took some great drone shots of the Yellowhead Center site, and also one of the proposed sites for a new recreation facility for Neepawa, which is immediately east of the new Best Western Plus Hotel, which just recently opened, and Eoin, you covered that a couple of weeks ago or so. And nothing makes things pop off the page as well as a color aerial photo, and I was very pleased with the results. And it shows very precisely what our situation is in terms of the current recreation facility and a proposed new one. Now, there was 4 sites for the proposed new recreation facility, and nothing's been decided yet. But I picked one because I thought it was the best one. The town owns the land already. There's already gas lines there, water line, sewer line, hydro to the site. So the servicing costs, there's 2 good roads right past it, brand new paved roads right by it, and possibly future access from another location into that site. And so where are we at with all this? A big discussion over the years has been what to do with the yellowhead. And so I figured, okay, I'll tackle that one first. We've had discussion as I said in the article, you know, there's 25 basketball teams in this town. You've been to some of those games, so have I.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Incredible atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20 so-called Filipino teams, although they're not totally Filipino, but largely Filipino. And then the 4 high school teams, and there may be more that I don't know about. And so they play in one gymnasium, and people say, oh, we need more basketball courts. So the problem with the Yellowhead is that the ice plant is aging, and it certainly showed its age last fall when it failed.
Well, let's be honest as well, Ken, it's showing its age this year as well, and I'm sure we're going to get into it in a little while.
So what to do with the Yellowhead? Well, it's an asset. It's on land, it's serviced, it's a big building, it's structurally pretty good shape, and I'm assured that the ice surface, shut down the ice plant, move out the boards, which could go to a new arena because they're fairly new boards. Yeah. Clock is fairly new, could go to a new arena, and use the current ice surface. It would make, I'm told by basketball fans and coaches, that you can make 3 decent-sized basketball courts, and if they're a little shorter than legal, well, some of the old guys that are playing basketball appreciate the fact that it's only 6 feet less to run, maybe, I don't know. But that's a possibility, and I suggest some other uses for the land and for the hall and for the waiting room area. So that would, I hope, influence in a favorable way some of the people who, you know, what are we going to do with the Yellowhead? There's a lot of facility there, you know, we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that over the last 50-some years. That would answer that. Then the new site, wow, I don't know, what do you think of the new site? You see the picture right there, Owen. It's, I don't know, I didn't even ask you your opinion, but quite a few people say that that's the site to go on. I don't know, do you think that's right?
Well, again, it's very interesting when you bring this up, Ken. Again, to refresh everyone's memory out there, just in case, it was several weeks ago, maybe even about a month to 6 weeks ago, that we had the story about the announcement that there was a committee in place looking at the future of recreation and a new recreation facility. They had the public meeting. There were some people out there. It was a decent crowd. It would have been nice to see a few more people out there, but it was still a very decent crowd that were out there and shared their perspective on what needs to happen and maybe where it needs to go. And from the sounds of it, the location you talked about was one of the 2 that really jumped out at people and thought that was the best option. So the arguments that you're making in this week's edition, and you laid it out pretty clearly, I thought, is very valid. And again, I haven't shared this, but I think we're far enough along in the process that I can share it with you. I voted for the curling club option. That was my personal choice. I felt it was the best option, even though space-wise it wasn't the largest of them. I felt like in terms of its proximity to the center of the community, as it stands right now, and its accessibility for people that don't have cars. There are a fair number of people in this community that still don't drive. There are a fair number of people in this community that don't readily and consistently drive. So we need to consider that accessibility issue. Some of the new areas out by where the hospital is going to be located, that's great and all, but that's a distance away for a fair number of people. For the northwest portion, where they're going to be doing some new suburbs as well, that is wonderful 5-10 years from now. but that's still a distance away for a lot of people. So I thought this was the best option for all of us as a contingent in this community. I'm not saying that's the right option. I'm just saying, in my humble opinion, I thought that was the best option to go with. And you sort of, it sounds like we haven't had this discussion, but it sounds like you had that exact same mindset, that the proximity to where we are right now, just the whole thing just made it the best, most viable choice.
Yeah, and the other thing I quoted in the story, and I've said it publicly too, many years ago, when Brandon decided to build a South End Mall, and I don't know when they built that downtown one, but when they built the South End one, that put tremendous pressure on Rosser Avenue as a retail center. And then when they built the north one, quite a few years later, but it's getting to be a few years ago now, that almost gutted downtown Brandon.
Yeah.
And we certainly don't want to see that here. There's three hotels within close proximity. One's across the street.
Yeah.
There's 4 restaurants across the street. There might be a 5th one. And the other restaurants in town aren't very far away, really. And so that's one factor. And then maybe the biggest factor is that the two-edged sword here, and I think both edges are right. People would say, what do we do with the Yellowhead Hall? What do we do for a hall? Well, there's no way, well, I shouldn't say no way, but it'd be very expensive to replace that square footage of that hall.
Yeah.
It's huge. Like you can seat, I've been there, you can seat 1,000 people in there for a large funeral or the Remembrance Day service or this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And what we don't have is a 300 to 400 seat hall, but the Best Western people are planning on building one.
Yep.
And so why would the public dollars go into building a hall when we have a big one and they're going to build a medium-sized one?
When we're going to be competing with one in a few years from now, which probably is going to have more accessibility, more options.
Yeah.
It's, no. Yeah.
And there's a lot more events with 300 people and less in the Yellowhead than there are 500 plus. Way more. So the option in the article here is to leave the hall in place and rejig the use of it and the waiting room as well.
Well, you've given the community something to think about, most definitely, with this feature, and I'm very interested to see what you have to think about. So if you have any opinions on that, whether you agree with Ken or whether you disagree with Ken, we'd love to hear from them. Always remember, you can get in touch with us. We're going to give the information before the end of this week's program, where you can send an email or a phone call of this. The only way we get action going is we continue to have the conversation. This is the worst thing sometimes about Neepawa, and I'm going to go off for a second here. This is not the opinion of NACTV. It's not the opinion of the Neepawa Banner Press, and it might not be your opinion, but maybe it should be. But in my humble opinion, I genuinely believe we have a terrible mindset in this community of we get amped up about doing something and then it just gets put by the wayside. Then all of a sudden we get distracted by something shiny down the road there, and it never gets that momentum. We've done it for so many different events before. We've done it for so many different organizations where they've had these big ideas and there hasn't been the follow through. And for the arena project, we have to follow through. So hopefully Ken's conversation is going to be that conversation restarter that Neepawa needs. Because we had the meeting about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and quite honestly, in the streets, I have not heard one single solitary peep from anybody about what happens next. So hopefully this will be that spark that gets the fire going.
Yeah, because there was going to be a survey done, and that hasn't been started either. And you're right; it's exactly by the date, June 10th. It's between 5 and 6 weeks ago that the meeting was, and so I guess you don't want to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off. But there is a lack of a sense of urgency in Neepawa, and you spoke to that a minute ago. Here's a side issue. In the Cree language, Neepawa means land of plenty. In the Northern Cree language, Neepawa means sleepy.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a bit of prophetic connection there. But anyway, just leave that where it is for now.
Well, that's right. hopefully, if you do have an opinion, you'll share it with us in a future edition of the paper. Let's get back into the pages of the Banner Press. There were so many different events that have been going on, and there's several events that are going to be happening in the near future, and we've got a few wonderful previews of those items. First off, the Rolling Barrage. I'm going to start off with the one I wrote about, the one that I have a personal sort of stake in that I've covered it for several years here in Neepawa. I have a special appreciation for what that organization is trying to do. For those of you that might not remember, the Rolling Barrage is a national campaign that in around the end of summer into the early fall rolls across Canada from the east to the west coast. It's a fundraiser that is looking to break the stigmas behind PTSD for service providers, for veterans, for police officers, for firefighters, for all those that have to deal with the stress of the job and what it does to your psyche. It's something that I very much appreciate, seeing those individuals come through. And I very much appreciate, I sort of went off on Neepawa a little bit earlier, but I'm going to commend the community of Neepawa here, and rightfully deserved. Every time the Rolling Barrage comes through, this community comes out en masse. The very first year, the streets of Neepawa were lined with people out there showing their support for the Rolling Barrage. The second year, it was a rainy day, so the numbers weren't quite as good. But the third and the fourth year as well, they were out there as well. They showed the support, and they appreciated the support that we were able to give them. That's why they keep coming back to us. That's why they keep rolling through a town of 5,500, 6,000 people. Unbelievable that they see what we contribute and want to come back and show their appreciation, because we show their appreciation to them. So this is going to be happening a little later in August, and like I said, each and every year, it is so wonderful to see. It's going to be happening this year. They're going to be rolling in on the Saturday, August the 9th, so just over a week from now, as we are recording this program, and then they will be rolling out from Neepawa on Sunday, August 10th. Hopefully that's going to help out with the numbers, Ken, in terms of families getting out there. It's the weekend, maybe they're able to get out as opposed to on a weekday, a work day. Yeah.
Well, it should be. It's a tremendous. If you just like to see a lot of steel on wheels, it's something worth looking at for sure. But the whole idea and impetus behind it is well worth supporting for sure.
All right, now a couple other things in relation to events that are upcoming here. Casper Werahan, our other reporter here with the Banner Press, was able to do a little bit of a preview in relation to the Harvest Sun Music Festival. This year is a very special year for Harvest Sun because they are marking their 20th year. That, of course, happens each and every year in Kelwood. It's, from what I've heard, it is a very entertaining weekend. I've never been out there myself, Ken. People for the most part annoy the hell out of me. Pardon my French, but But from what I've heard, for the most part, the people that are out there, they're all right. They're pretty good. So,
well, my son has been at every one of them, so yes, you're right. They are pretty good. Yeah. But it's mutual, Owen. People annoy.
Oh, yes, I've got the letters. I've received the letters, yes.
Anyway, Harvest Sun is really a homegrown festival. I think it's the 18th year, you said, I believe it is?
20 years.
20 years, wow.
This will be the 20 years they've been able to put the whole thing together.
And I think when my wife and I have been to nearly every one of them, we're not the kind of people that are going to sit and listen to music for 3 days, but we appreciate it, and it's really good, and it's great for a small community. And their format has changed this year. They're not going to rent the big tent. They're not going to fence in an area. The beer garden is going to be at the Legion, so they don't have to have a special area or get rained out or whatever. The community hall is going to be where the main music program is. Limited attendance of 160, I believe, paid. Open shows at the campground, the hootenanny type of shows at the end of the day. And so it's lots of meals, camping, beautiful view of the mountain, and you can't beat it. It should be a good deal.
That's right. And again, 20 years in, wonderful tradition for our area. And hopefully you'll be able to participate not only in this tradition, but maybe a new tradition that's coming down the way in terms of the White Mud Music Festival. Now, this is the third year, apparently, that this event is going to be going on, and it was Joshua Jackson that was able to get details on this particular story. You can find it on page 15 of this week's edition of the Banner Press. Now, the White Mud as well, looking to establish themselves. From the bits and pieces I've seen here, it's a slightly different sort of music orientation. Harvest Sun is more of a jazz, sort of lighter. This one seems more rock, elements to it. So it's nice to see that there's a little bit for everyone in and around the area.
Yeah, the Arden Festival has a special appeal to it too, because it's right on the bank of the river there. It's a natural amphitheater.
Yeah.
And so it's really quite good. And there's you can go around and drive around the campground, which is across the river, and park your car and listen to a few minutes of music. But the people who really enjoy it are going to buy tickets and get hunkered in down in the bottom of the river bottom there and listen to it echo off the hills.
Don't let them ever tell you there's not anything to do in rural Manitoba, because if they're telling you that, they don't know nothing. So there's so much to do, so much to keep you occupied. So hopefully you'll get a chance to go out there and see it for yourself. All right, now let's get into the nitty-gritty here. We've had a little bit of fun. Now we're going to eat our vegetables in terms of some of the news stories we got this week. And this one was one that rolled in. It was the Canadian Tax Federation, and they have their new debt clock. It's essentially a giant clock that is set up along the vehicle, and it travels throughout Manitoba this time out to show each and every individual what your personal debt is for the national debt usually. But this time they changed it up. They focused this year on the provincial debt for Manitoba. Oh boy. It's a little bit bigger than maybe we thought it was.
It says I owe $23,289.57, Owen.
At that moment, Ken.
It's higher now.
It's much higher now because it rolls over another $4,000 every minute in total. So you probably owe another $42 or $43 by the time we're recording here. So it's unbelievable just to see what that number is. And that's part of the reason why the CTF actually does the debt clock, the actual physical representation of it, strolling all across Manitoba. If I remember correctly, it started in Winnipeg, did a little side trip over to Steinbach, down to Winkler-Morton area. Then it came up to Neepawa and finished off its little trip in Brandon. That visual representation, because we hear these numbers, we hear all these big numbers, 10 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion. And when it comes to government spending, it just all turns into haze because it just doesn't mean anything to us. But they took this version of it and personalized it. This is what makes it more impactful, and they hope that it's impactful so that you as an individual is going to reach out to your MLA and maybe ask, what's going on? What can we do to curtail some of this issue? So, and that was the entire point. Yeah.
Still drains me. How am I ever going to pay that?
Well, okay, all right. Well, we'll get a little more lighthearted to finish off in the last few minutes here. Although it's still about people owing people money. It is the Neepawa Titans, of course, our Junior A hockey team that have been around for 36 years now. And they recently had their annual general meeting. And, well, unfortunately, the numbers aren't the greatest. But let's be honest, they could be a whole heck of a lot worse. This year, unfortunately, for the fiscal year, they had a deficit. They had a debt, year over year, a loss of $11,278. That's unfortunate, but it was circumstances beyond their control. Now, let me just quickly explain. Last year, the ice plant at the Yellowhead Center went completely out just before they were going to start things up and put the ice in. That caused the Titans to have to cancel their hockey school, their preseason games, and their training camp. All of those, to a degree, are revenue generators for the team. In essence, that thing that was beyond their control and beyond the Yellowhead Center's control as well, it was just an act of God or whatever you want to say, it cost the team $24,000 to their bottom line. So, and that as well combined with, they made the playoffs and they played the Northern Manitoba Blizzard, but distance between Neepawa and the Paw is a little bit. You got to pay for hotel accommodations. You got to pay for overnights. You got to pay for dinners and all that. So it wasn't the revenue generator a series against Dauphin or a series against Wayway-Sakapa would have been. They still made money, but not to the same degree. So it was just tiny little things here and there beyond their control that sort of ultimately hit the bottom line. So,
Well, you said an act of God. I'm sorry. It was an act of benign neglect on behalf of the Yellowhead, because after all those years, they should have pre-tested the ice plant. And a pre-test would have showed there was a leak. And so they could have avoided that. I hope they've avoided it this year. But I'm not holding my breath. Sorry.
well, hopefully we will find out. But we will be finding out a few weeks later than usual. They have decided moving forward that they will be starting the ice plant in about late August, early September. And that means the Neepawa Titans will not be having training camp or their hockey school or some of their preseason games here again. This time, though, at least they know about it. So they've made alternate arrangements. And we're going to tell you all about those alternate arrangements in next week's edition of the Neepawa Banner Press and on next week's edition of the Story Behind the Stories. That's why you got to tune in, and that's why you've got to pick up a copy of our paper each and every week. That pretty much wraps it up. We only got a minute or two left, but there's so much more we could talk about. There is so much more we have to cover. But there's only 30 minutes and a half hour. Funny that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hasn't changed in a while.
Yeah. But that's why you got to pick up a copy. Like I said, 30 different communities throughout Western Manitoba. You can pick up a copy of the Banner and Press. Or if not, always remember, neepawabanner.com. And if you have any story ideas or suggestions, or you just want to yell at us for a minute or two, always remember you can give us a call at 476-3401 or send an email at news@neepawabanner.com. Again, that is news@neepawabanner.com. That pretty much wraps it up. I got nothing else to complain about this week. How about you, Ken?
Just there's lots more in the paper, and we'll hope to be here with you again next week and the week after that for a long time to come.
That's right. We're not here unless you're here. We appreciate you tuning in and supporting our station and supporting our newspaper. So until next time, have yourselves a wonderful week.